Why don't we give him another minute and see if he shows up. Why don't we start, and hopefully Kurt will join us maybe after we get through the preliminaries of the meeting. So welcome everyone to the August 16th, 2022 Winchester Planning Board meeting. We are being recorded by Zoom, and do we have WinCam? And by WinCam. Thank you, WinCam. If you don't want to appear on our recordings, please turn off your video and turn off your mic. So let me do a roll call vote. Let's see who's here. Nick Rosettos.
Aye, here.
Sally Dale.
Present.
I Ching Scott.
Present.
And Diab Juries is present, and we are still waiting on our fifth member, Kurt Spring. Today, we have only a few things on our agenda. The first is a public hearing on a preliminary subdivision plan for land off of Cambridge Street called Rocky Ledge Terrace. Then we have an A&R on 21 Dartmouth Street. We'll be talking about our North Main Street with our North Main Street consultants about the next part of our second phase of North Main Street planning.
Sorry, just to quickly say, we are just reviewing their scope and fee, but they are not here this evening. So
okay.
Sorry if that was a miscommunication, but we hadn't planned on them coming this evening.
Okay, no, just my lossy memory. And then we may be getting to a discussion of the ADU bylaw. I don't know if we have anything new to talk about that. But in any case, right now we are going to begin our public hearing on the Rocky Ledge Terrace. And what I'd like to ask is if everyone could put their correct name as their screen name on Zoom, if you wish to speak. That way our recording secretary will be able to record you properly. So Brian, if you could move over to our public hearing rules, our procedures. Just so we'll go through here. Okay, so welcome to the public hearing to discuss a preliminary subdivision in the Rocky Ledge Terraces. We are being recorded. I don't think I need to read the legal notice. So we are going to have a presentation by the applicant first, then we'll discuss any letters and memos. Then we will get comments from town staff and other boards. Then we will have a public comment period. And so at that point in the public comment period, we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak, but we would like to be efficient. So when you speak, please state your name, your company if applicable, and address for the record. Direct all of your comments and questions to the chairs. And if someone has already made your point, please be brief and don't make that point again, just so that everyone has a chance to speak and we can move through this quickly. So those are the rules. So our next part is we are now section 4 of our application, or of our procedures, which is presentation by the applicant. So who is speaking for the applicant this evening?
Hi, everybody. Richard Beliveau from Volney Capital. Great to see you all again. It's been about a year, I think, maybe since we last were here to present this project. So going to give you a quick rundown of the overall summary, and then I'll pass it off to RJ O'Connell, the civil engineers, to run through the details. Brian, are you on and able to share your screen?
I most definitely am. Just to let you know, introduce myself, Brian Tim, professional engineer and senior project manager over at RJ O'Connell and Associates. Sitting across the table from me is Drew Gallant, who is also one of our staff designers, who helped put together this plan.
Great.
Okay. And if I could interrupt real quickly, we do have Kurt Spring here. So Kurt, if you could just declare yourself present, we can officially count you.
I am present. Sorry,
Excellent.
I was not here for one
No
second.
problem. Okay. Sorry for the interruption. Please continue.
So we originally brought this project in front of you guys informally about, I think, 3 times. What we presented, well, when the site was originally brought to us, it was an opportunity that was being presented for a larger type of multifamily development. When we saw it, we thought that the best use would be to follow what was allowed by the zoning in that area. So single family residential. And we originally were planning for 6 houses on a cul-de-sac. We went through the whole process of seeing if we were able to connect and make a through road. And that just, it was not feasible to connect this through. So after those presentations and getting some feedback from you all, we went forward with this presentation. During the engineering process, though, we discovered that the lower 3 lots were going to cause a lot of disruption, and it would require a lot of excavation, and we're just going to be detrimental to the site. So what we did is we worked closely with the Mahonies and agreed that for what would be best for the project, for the community, and for the abutters would be to shrink the project down to just do 3 lots. Which would allow us to have much less excavation requirements, be able to maintain the grade of the site, and we wouldn't have to do very large retaining walls and really have a large impact on the community. So what we're here today to present is our 3-lot subdivision with a cul-de-sac off of Rocky Ledge Terrace. Rocky Ledge is currently a dead-end street with 1 house. And so what we'd be looking to do is take that current dead-end street and create a cul-de-sac where you could turn around at the end of that. And I'll pass it off to Brian, who can now pull up the plans and walk you through the engineering.
Thank you, members of the planning board. And Ricky, thank you for that quick overview of how we got to where we are today. Some of this might be repetitive of what Ricky just mentioned, but I'm just going to run through it for the members of the audience that may be on as well. So as Ricky mentioned, we are looking at a subdivision, a 3-lot subdivision, residential subdivision, extending the existing Rocky Ledge Terrace, located to the west of what's known as Mahoney's Garden site right here. Just to give you kind of a locus context map from a high level here, you can see the new site, approximately 2 acres that we're proposing to develop here, just to the south of the dead end of Rocky Ledge. So I'll just drive us through a little bit, moving in a southern direction. And this dark area essentially is all of our direct abutters and Mahoney's garden center, if you will. What you'll see up in this location here, if everybody can see my mouse that's pointing, that's Wagon Wheel Road. It is a cul-de-sac ending here. The white area here is Rocky Ledge Terrace, which is a dead end. It's approximately 200 linear feet. And we're proposing to extend that roadway and actually create another cul-de-sac, extending it approximately another 190 feet, making a total roadway length of 400 feet. Again, we're going to create 3 lots, and it kind of shows you the size and how it fits into the neighborhood here. Just give you a little bit of an aerial, same image. You can see down in this location is the Mahoney's nursery garden area. This is the wagon wheel with the cul-de-sac dead end, Rocky Ledge Terrace, and this outline is the approximate 2 acres of land that we're looking to propose to do the 3-lot residential subdivision. I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer, give you a little bit more context. And these pictures here are showing you, and I'll go back to the other page. This is from the intersection of Wagon Wheel and Rocky Ledge Terrace, looking up the existing Rocky Ledge Terrace from both directions. What you'll find is, this is an existing road. It's climbing up at about 11%. And then at the very far end of this dead end, which is truly a dead end, it basically levels off the existing land. So, apologize. So again, now we kind of reverse the orientation here. Those photos were taken from the top of the screen, looking down at the existing right-of-way here. As I mentioned before, that existing paved roadway is 200 feet long. You can see that in the gray area here. Right now, Rocky Ledge Terrace only provides access to this one house on one Rocky Ledge Terrace. Is 2 curb cuts, I believe. They have a U-shaped driveway out there. The other direct abutter to Rocky Ledge Terrace is 11 Wagon Wheel Road. Their driveway access is out to Wagon Wheel. We're going to propose to extend that right-of-way, which is an existing 40-foot right-of-way, 26-foot wide pavement, and extend it an additional 190 feet, which you can see there in the red text, creating approximately 400 linear feet of a roadway. It's going to have a cul-de-sac, which is actually bigger than the cul-de-sac on Wagon Wheel Road, having a pavement width of approximately 100 feet in diameter. We are going to propose to soften this grade from an 11, so it's going to maintain, the roadway out here on Rocky Ledge. And then what we're going to do is transition down to a 2% grade, as flat as we possibly can, while maintaining a vertical curve to gradually transition from the 11% grade to a 2% grade, thereby minimizing the amount of earthwork we possibly can on this site. What this subdivision roadway will create are 3 residential lots within the residential zone RDA 20. These lots will have a minimum of 20,000 square feet of lot area, a minimum frontage of at least 100 feet, thereby meeting all the zoning code for a residential building lot in this zone. What we try to depict on this plan here, the 2 different colors of green. Green shows roughly what we're anticipating to allot to development for the residential homes and yards and driveways on each lot. Definitely, we're going to refine that as we move to the definitive stage. But what's important to show here is the dark green shows a buffer zone we're trying to protect from the direct abutters as best as we possibly can. As Ricky mentioned, this is a significant topographical site that has a lot of grade change. So we will need to create some retaining walls here, but drastically less than what was proposed with a 6-lot subdivision that was initially contemplated. You can see the retaining walls kind of in the areas I'm outlining here. This is the same image. I'm just, going back and forth here. The roadway is going to drain from the bottom of the screen down towards up towards Rocky Ledge Terrace on the screen view. Prior to the rainwater, which is going to be traveling down this new roadway, we're going to catch it in 2 catch basins, run it through a water quality device as required by the stormwater management standards, infiltrate it in this blue area, which is a subsurface infiltration system, trying to recharge the groundwater. And then we're going to have an overflow pipe. It's going to run down in the existing Rocky Ledge Terrace and tie into the existing drain main down in Wagon Wheel Road. We also allotted 3 areas, 1 on each lot, that are going to be other dry wells, if you will. They're going to be sized to infiltrate the runoff during the 100-year storm from the roof of all the new homes that will be constructed on each lot. Again, I know we're here for the creation of this roadway, but we just wanted to show that the intention is definitely to manage our stormwater very responsibly, not only for the development town, but also for the neighborhood. This is the same image as well. We're also going to show, I'm trying to show here, we are going to bring in water lines, which are shown in blue, connecting down to the water line. It's actually down in Wagon Wheel Road. There is a sewer line. Wagon Wheel Road is significantly lower than our development up here. So we have enough pitch and elevation to be able to discharge our sewer and sanitary by gravity to the municipal sewer system in Wagon Wheel Road. We're also going to be bringing in the gas if it's available, and telephone communication and electric from Wagon Wheel Road as well. Run through, whoops. Sorry for the sensitive touch here on this mouse. So we are looking at here, we did get some comments back from the town, the planning department, as well as the engineering department. I'm showing you here in a profile. One of the comments did say that the subdivision regulations in the town of Winchester allows a maximum slope of the new roadways of 8%. So there is a little bit of confusion or questions, I guess, is a better term to use, that our proposed road was going to be in excess of the 8% maximum allowable. So this line here represents the existing centerline grade of Rocky Ledge Terrace, and that's actually an 11% grade. So what you can see beyond that, this is actually the cul-de-sac in profile. We're proposing that to be installed at a maximum of 2% or 2% grade, and this is a transition between the 11% and the 2% with what's called a vertical curve here. So we're not proposing anything more steeper than a 2% roadway centerline profile. So, with that, I can go through a couple other the plans here, but these are all the site layout plans and all the other plans that have been submitted. We just added color to a lot of these to help with the presentation. So I don't know if I want to get into all that right now, or if I can turn it over for questions. Actually, one of the comments that did come up was the engineering department or the planning director, I believe, asked us to consider potentially, instead of having a big asphalt cul-de-sac, potentially to put a landscape island in the center of the new cul-de-sac. So we found a cul-de-sac example in the relative neighborhood at the end of Pilgrim Drive. As you can kind of see over here, this is our site that I'm pointing at here off of Rocky Ledge Terrace. And this cul-de-sac that you're looking at right here with the center island, landscape island, is right around the neighborhood. So it's kind of what we're thinking, and the applicant, Ricky, is pretty much in favor of doing something like this. We'd obviously get that approval by the fire department to make sure he's comfortable with his trucks being able to transition around, travel around that. So with that, I'm going to kind of leave it up to Ricky if you'd like to add anything here. I know we also have the attorneys Reamer and Bronstein on. They may like to add some things, maybe some waiver requests that we were asking for here, and then open it up for any questions or comments from the planning board.
Hi, I just want to say you guys you have just a couple minutes left of your 15 minutes. So do you want to ask?
Yeah, but I think we're all good. Brian, thanks for running through everything on there, and we're excited to get some feedback and continue the process.
Okay, well, if that is it for your presentation, according to our procedures, we don't get to ask you questions yet. We first go to memos and letters. And Brian, do you have our Brian, not your Brian, our Brian, do you have any letters or memos from non-town hall or committees?
So I have not, I had only received requests for the subdivision applications, but did not receive comments or memos from any resident. And then last night at the historical commission meeting, they did not take a vote on anything, but said that at this time there's no known historic resources in this area, and they look forward, to looking at more information as the process continues. But they're not going to be issuing, the historical commission is not going to be issuing any memos. The design review committee should be issuing a memo at their next meeting, where they would discuss potentially the shape of the road and I would imagine street trees. And the landscaped island. I think that's what they're going, because we're not talking about houses or house design. So that was probably what we were going to get a memo from the DRC about.
Okay. So I know we have, in terms of comments from staff and other boards, we do have comments from the engineering department, which we'll get into real quickly or real shortly. Did we get anything from the Board of Health? Department of Public Works, the Health Department. We got something from the Planning Department, yes, but how about Public Works and Department of Health?
No, we did not receive anything, which is typical. If there is no comment, we don't typically get a memo of saying no comment. So no, at this time, we do not have any response yet. We don't have a response from the Board of Health or DPW or the fire department, because it hasn't been finalized. Like the applicant said, that we would engage with the fire department once something is ready to be reviewed.
Okay, so then why don't we, do we have someone from the engineering department with us this evening to go through their comments? We do. Brian Mantor.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I'm here.
Do you want to lead us through the engineering department's comments, please?
Certainly. Mr. Chair, would you like me to go through each comment individually, or just a high level sort of review?
Let's see, you have, it's only a four-page memo, so why don't you just hit the highlights? And
Certainly.
then we'll come back to you, I think, from the board if we have any other questions.
Certainly. Okay. So some of the higher level things are, as we proceed to continue to look at this project, the engineering department looks forward to obtaining a little more information on certain aspects of their proposal. One of them would be providing additional information on the amount of blasting to be performed at the site, the amount of material expected to be removed from the site. Another thing that we look forward to learning a little bit more about is how the applicant will provide additional information on how they propose to disconnect impervious surface on their plan. We look forward to seeing a little more information on their stormwater design, more specifically the calculations on how they're able to determine the sizing of their systems, especially as it relates to the soil conditions that are at the site. We know that it's a little rocky, which might make for design a good challenge for the design team. Let's see, the engineering department recommends that the applicant consider a homeowners association to maintain proposed drainage system in the cul-de-sac roadway, and that the systems are to be maintained by the HOA and not the responsibility of the individual homeowners. That's for the common area infiltration system that Mr. Tim discussed. The site is relatively large compared to a lot of the sites that we typically see on a monthly basis. It's just over or about, it's over an acre, which would require it to have a stormwater pollution prevention plan and meet NEPD's, which is the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System Program guidelines. So that'll be something else the applicant will need to work with the town on. The applicant has requested several waiver requests. Well, I'll just quickly run through them. Waiver request number 1 was means of access, and the engineering department relies on the opinion of the fire department in this matter. Waiver number 2 is with respect to no. I'm sorry, I got a. Okay, Papa's on a meeting. This is people Papa works with, so you just behave. Okay, so try to run through this. I'm sorry, I apologize for this. So dead end streets, the engineering department has no comment on this request. As long as the proposed cul-de-sac is safe for public access and safety vehicles. But however, we have no formal requirements on design for a cul-de-sac. Waiver request number 3, sidewalks and roadways. Given the lack of sidewalks in the abutting neighborhood and the low volume of traffic expected in the roadway, engineering department has no concerns with this request. Waiver request number 4, utilities and paved areas of right of way. We have no concerns with this request. The next one, waiver number 5, land contours extending 150 feet into adjacent land. Given that the location of this parcel is at the highest point in the surrounding areas, engineering department has no concerns with this request. However, there are a few additional waiver requests that the applicant will need to ask for. One of them being they are currently proposing a dead end water main. And Maxwell, no. And the maximum road grade discussions, I think Mr. Tim discussed that earlier. Maxwell. However, the engineering department's recommendation is that the design not be changed, that Maxwell changed to meet those, sorry, that the engineering department's recommendation is that the design be changed to come in a compliance with the subdivision rules and regulations. And then just trying to go through these again. And then the last high level thing is that the engineering department recommends that a consultant be brought on board to confirm or to take a second look at the stormwater design, especially with respect to downstream capacity, sewer, and especially the downstream capacity of the flows proposed, and the options of the hydraulics with respect to the water main looping. So sorry about all this, but that's my high level review.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to the assistant town engineer for helping us. Okay, and then our next memo is from the town planner.
Sure. So everyone's got a copy. So I think I'm gonna do what Brian did here and kind of do high level, hopefully without unexpected visitors, but hey, you never know. So the applicant has been before the board in 2021 and 2022, and instruction was given to the applicant to devise a smaller development than what was contemplated at the time, which was 6 house lots, or to somehow create a through road without the need for a waiver for the dead end streets. What we saw was that it was more intensive with the land in terms of altering a whole bunch of rocky ledge. And so the applicant chose to limit the size of the subdivision to 3 lots in order to minimize the amount of disturbance to the land and cut and fill as part of the development. So the high level talking about the waivers, means of access, I have the same comment as the engineering department, is that I deferred to the fire department regarding this waiver, but do not have an immediate issue with the only having a means of access. There are many, as long as the fire truck can clear, no issues. So no dead end streets. So this is kind of the regulation waiver that the board needs to determine conceptually regarding this preliminary plan. The main part of the preliminary subdivision application process is to raise concerns, need for information, so that when a or if a definitive plan is applied for, that it basically has all the necessary information that the board would want. So conceptually, a 3-house lot subdivision appears to be the least impactful to the community when compared to the other 2 alternatives that were contemplated previously, which were this 6-unit or this larger multifamily deed restricted mixed income development. So I recommended to waive this regulation it is in the best interest of the land and the neighborhood, as a through road that, even though it was by right, would actually be more impactful. Agree with engineering department regarding sidewalks. There's none in the vicinity, and had no issues with the other waivers regarding utilities within the paved area right of way or the land contours. I had several questions and concerns that I wrote in my memo, and if we have time, we can, or if the board or the applicant has any questions about that, we can go into that further. But I think, just like the engineering department, we expect some type of response from the applicant over the coming weeks, responding to the comments that we gave. So back to you, Diab.
Thank you, Brian. So at this point in our procedure, we open it up to the public. And what we'd like to do is get a sense of how many people would like to speak. And if you could just raise your hand. I see one person, and we'll just go through, and each person is nominally gets 5 minutes. And what we'd like to do, according to our procedures, we'd like to alternate between those who are opposed and those who are in favor of this project. And apparently opponents will go first. So let's see. I see Brian Lapointe, and that's it. So Brian Lapointe, you're on deck.
All right.
If you could
Thank
just
you.
give us your name.
Yep, my name's Brian Lapointe. I live 263 Cambridge Street. I bought 1/2 of the original Purcell Pansy Patch at Greystone, across from the new Mahoney's Gardens Center. I got this notice about what was going on, and I had no idea what it was about, right, with the streets or anything like that. I was always concerned about the storm drain off and everything else, because whenever Mahoney's has all their gardening stuff going on, the street in front of me and on Cambridge Street just floods. But that's okay. So I was actually quite relieved to hear the results from the engineering, how the grading and everything else. So from the street will be going back to Wagon Wheel Road. So I'm happy about that. I never really thought about the blasting until I heard about this. I'm hoping there won't be a lot of blasting to disturb where I am right across the street, but I would assume that that's not going to be a big deal. So I just joined in because I got this letter, and I wanted to hear what was going on. And I'm actually happy to hear what's been done so far, and all of the work that everybody on the planning board and all you people and the committees have done to make sure that everything is done properly. And right now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm all in favor of it. And thanks for letting me to join in on this. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad that our notice got to you and that you were able to make it. Our next comments are from Joe Fernandez. Joe Fernandez, are you able to unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please let us know who you are and where you live and proceed with your comments.
Yeah, I live on One Rocky Lake Terrace, and this developer Ricky had approached me a couple of years back and again last year. So I have a couple of questions which I'll let my neighbor Bob ask, because he's an engineer and he has a better understanding of what needs to be asked over here.
Hello, again, I'm Robert Suslovich. I live on Surrey Road. And a question I have for the board is, you mentioned that the water and the sewer line and drainage from this project will exit somewhere, terminate on Wagon Wheel Road. And I'm just wondering, do you have easements through the various properties to be able to exit on Wagon Wheel Road? Because as far as I know, all of the properties are built right up through Wainwright, and I don't see how anything could exit on Wagon Wheel that didn't have an easement on properties that were already built there.
Okay, why don't I pass that on to the development team?
Yeah, so I can speak on that, Brian. So yeah, so we would be going right down the existing Rocky Ledge Terrace. So it would be in the street. So it wouldn't be going through anyone's property. It'd be connecting on Rocky Ledge Terrace down to Wagon Wheel.
If that's the case, then would it require a pumped storm and sewage system to be able to be installed to be able to pump water from these homes uphill to get to our Rocky Ledge Terrace? Get to Wagon Wheel, I'm sorry.
Ricky, do you want me to take that?
Yeah, you can take that, Brian.
Sure, as the professional engineer, Chair, I speak through you.
Yep.
The sewer will act via gravity. We are going to be considerably higher than Wagon Wheel, so the sewer will act without a pump. The water main for domestic water use is under pressure in Wagon Wheel, so there will be no need for pumps to our knowledge to get it to come up and reach these homes. We will obviously go into the definitive stage, have our mechanical engineer do some calculations to verify that with the pressure in the street. And that's part of the peer review process as well. So we don't anticipate any need for any pumps for any of these services. And like Ricky said, the applicant, all these utility mains will be going down the existing roadway of Rocky Ledge Terrace, which is a public right of way.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but having visited the site myself and walked the site, it looks like where the houses are going to be significantly below where Rocky Ledge Terrace enters the proposed development. And unless you have a sewer and storm drainage system that is considerably deeper, I don't know how it could connect to Rocky Ledge to Wagon Wheel without having to have a pump system, unless you went down maybe 50 or 100 feet down. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm not an engineer, so I'll leave that to you to flesh out.
Sure. And what I just brought up on the screen for everybody to be able to see is the profile on the right. You'll see Rocky Ledge Terrace is up high, and then the road goes down to Wagon Wheel on the left side. So it will be able to work by gravity here. In fact, we are going to be filling. I know there's some questions, concerns about blasting. It's also interesting to see here is that this roadway is actually going to be above the existing grade. So we are not going to anticipate a substantial amount of earthwork cut. It's actually a proposed fill site, net fill. So just take that opportunity to explain that here. And we will work with the town engineer to make sure that these utility systems work without pumps as best we possibly can.
Oh, okay, that's fine. What is the grade elevation where the houses are going to be built? And how does that compare to the elevations of Rocky Ledge Terrace and Wagon Wheel? Can anyone hear me?
Yes,
Yes, we
can hear
can.
you.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my plans right here. Again, we haven't designed the houses exactly yet, but the roads, the houses are going to be around elevation 190. And the elevation at the intersection of Wagon Wheel is around 180, 10 feet lower.
The intersection of Wagon Wheel and Rocky Ledge Terrace will be 180?
Approximately. Approximately even lower than that, 178.
78.
Okay. I'm going to mispronounce your name, Mr. Suskovich. I hope I didn't murder it too much.
No, not too bad. It's been done much worse than that.
Well, then I guess I feel happy about that. So why don't oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong clock here. But why don't if we can move, see if there's someone else who has a question. Let's go to them, and then
yeah, I would. This is Raina from 1 Rocky Ledge Terrace.
Okay.
I would like to know what precautions is the builder going to take during the blasting of the rocks to make sure the adjacent houses are not damaged, and if they do get damaged, would he be responsible to restore the houses at no cost to the owners?
Yeah, so I can take that. So, one thing about this design is that we are able to do minimal blasting would be the hope, right? And that's by raising up the street, by not doing the lower lots. It's really been able to minimize the amount of earthwork that would be required. But one thing we've done on other projects is that we would commit to doing property inspections prior to any type of site work or blasting. We could either do that just our company, or we could bring in a third-party engineer to join us on those and create a report. And then if anything was to occur, it would be obviously our responsibility fully to fix those repairs. So that would be our process.
This is Joe Fernandez. I have a question. So, and this is for the builder, for Ricky. When you guys are going to start this construction, right? It is my understanding that the first thing that you guys will have to do is build a cul-de-sac, okay? Because the driveway is very small driveway, okay? It cannot accommodate cars on both sides of the driveway because we have to get out, okay? So I believe the first thing that you guys will have to do is build a cul-de-sac and then park all your cars and construction vehicles in that cul-de-sac to do the construction, okay? Instead of blocking 1 Rocky Ledge Terrace and we will not be able to get out of cars and things like that. So just we want to make sure that that does not happen.
Yeah, 100%. We can definitely ensure that all laborers park up on the site and are not parking on Rocky Ledge Terrace.
And let me ask Brian Zakelli. Brian, is sort of the staging of construction part of our definitive subdivision? Is that something we get into at that point?
Yes, and I will, yes, it's possible to get into conditions that you would put in. You could do that now as part of the preliminary or the definitive. But those essentially are conditions that would be put into any type of decision. So yes, that's possible to talk about times of construction or not. Well, we have a construction bylaw that is unrelated to subdivision. But we could put conditions on, like we're talking about here, where parking could be located, so not to block off, Rocky Ledge Terrace. So those are types of things we could put in either the preliminary or the definitive decision.
Right. So let me, to those in the audience, so what we're looking at right now is just the preliminary subdivision application. There will be in a sense, more formal definitive subdivision application, which will go into much more depth in terms of stormwater management. And as Brian pointed out, we could discuss construction staging and parking in much more depth. Then perhaps it might be better to talk about it after some more of the details of the project are worked out by the engineers, because I think right now they've just done some preliminary site work. So I know that there are probably going to be more concerns as people start to look at this more, but we can address a lot of those when we get to the definitive subdivision. So if there are no other people from the neighborhood who'd like to speak.
Yeah, I would like to ask one more question, okay, because this developer is.
Mr. Fernandez, can I ask you to
Yeah.
hold, because we have another person, Mr. Giorgio Zaccaria, who would like to speak, and I'd like to let him have some time, and then we'll come back to you. Giorgio Zaccaria, if you could tell us where you live, and I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
It's close enough. It's Giorgio Zaccaria, and we live in 8 St. Augustine Court.
Okay.
I'm concerned about the grading, and obviously we are behind the construction. From what I see here, the elevation of the cul-de-sac is actually higher than the elevation of the ground or level of the homes. So I'm concerned whether the engineering study of how the water would drain behind the homes rather than on the street has been adequate, and any potential water's coming our way.
So you were worried about water coming off the back end of the property.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
And so we're discussing right now is essentially the construction of the roadway. And when it comes to the individual homes, that would be brought up at the time when the homes.
This is related though, because the roadway brings the circle, brings the cul-de-sac higher than it is right now. And
okay, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Right?
Okay.
So by bringing higher, it potentially makes any stormwater issues worse.
Okay, I apologize. So the raising of the cul-de-sac is going to increase. Does someone from the engineering or the design team want to respond to that?
Sure. Thank you for your concern and comment there as well. So I understand your concern, and I know we were talking about the drainage of the roadway heading down towards Wagon Wheel, but also we are not allowed by law to increase the amount of runoff or the rate of runoff flowing to all areas of offsite, your property being one of many of the other abutting properties. So we will make sure in the definitive stage to prove that the construction of this roadway will not increase the rate of runoff flowing to your property. What I can also offer you, I'm trying to make sure I don't dive too much into the weeds of engineering, but this roadway will have curbing on it. So even though it is raised 2 feet, any water falling onto this cul-de-sac will stay on the cul-de-sac. Whereas right now, it actually flows across the land and travels across all the wooded area and onto your property. So we will be removing some area that's currently directing water towards your property and putting it underground. But again, I hear your concern, and we will make sure to address that at the definitive stage when we get into the real detailed version of the calculations. And if it will also, just to let you know, as the chair mentioned, when we design each lot, there are requirements that require management of your stormwater runoff from each lot, and it has to be approved by the city as well, by the town as well, which also includes an underground dry well for each lot as well.
And those engineering studies will be made public?
Yes.
Yes.
The whole process, what we're going through here for this, so this is just to ask the board for permission to build a roadway. A very similar process will happen for each of the individual lots, if I'm correct, Brian Sekeli, correct?
It really depends on whether or not the houses require site plan review or not. And since this is not part of that process, it's unclear, but there's no doubt that I think really maybe the engineering department, if you want, could explain for any house, there needs to be a review. And just to back up what Tim was talking about, as it is a Massachusetts law, like you're not allowed to push water onto other people's property. That's like you're just, not that that's going to make you sleep well at night, but that can't do that. And part of the engineering review is making sure that the water that is captured is going into these underground systems to be able to provide stormwater relief. So just kind of a high level question. So I guess back to Diab.
Yeah, I'm looking at the time right now, and we have about 20. Well, we have about a half an hour left, and what I'd like to do is to have the board start their discussion, because I think we want to be able to come to a decision on the waiver, the important waiver, which is the acceptance of a cul-de-sac, and also what sort of consultants we might be needing prior to the definitive subdivision. And also if the board has any other questions which they need answered prior to making a decision. So I'm hoping that what we can walk away with tonight is a decision on the waivers as much as we can that are presented to us. So that would be the ones listed in Brian's memo, which I seem to have misplaced already. And also the question of whether there should be additional waivers required for the road and for the water main loop. So why don't I open it up to the board, and why don't we go through the board systematically? So why don't we give each of you a couple minutes so that we have enough time to go around, and if you have any particular questions or a concern, why don't we raise them? Which of the board would like to go first? Nobody. Okay, well then I will lead the way, unless I'm stepping on someone's toes. I don't see anyone actively raising their hand. So one of the things that I noted that I didn't see in the application packet was a preliminary estimate of the cut and fill. And I know that's something that we do require for the preliminary subdivision review. And I'm wondering if the engineering team can give us some sort of an estimate of that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, it was in the, Rick did include that, not on the plan set, but in, I think, the development impact statement report.
Okay,
I understand it's very, very wordy, if you will. So our estimated earthwork calculation is going to be approximately 940 cubic yards of fill as a net fill site.
And can you tell me how many 18 wheelers of fill that is? Because I'm afraid I can't picture that. Something a mere mortal would understand.
Yeah. How many? I want to say 20, 20. Yeah, I think it's more than 20, 25. I don't have that exact number right now, but it's something I can provide back to you. It's going to be moving earth around it. And, I can definitely provide that again.
Yeah, and it'd be good to know how much of that's going to be coming from on-site and how much is going to come from off-site, because we'll have to deal with construction, traffic, and all of that.
Correct. Yep.
And so I am much in favor of putting landscaping in the cul-de-sac. The question I had, and I don't know if you have the answer, is the example you gave at 8 Pilgrim Drive, how big is that relative to the size of the cul-de-sac that you have on your drawings? You don't have to answer that right now. The other thing I think it's really important is an understanding of which trees are going to be removed. And so we have an impact of how the roadway will impact the existing trees. And I didn't see that. So that would be good to know. We're supposed to, one of the things is to minimize removal of trees 6 inches or greater. So having a map of that would be very useful. The other question I had, no, that's not a useful question. So I can pass that on. I don't have any other questions. Does another board member want to step in? I Ching, your hand went up momentarily quicker.
So I just wanted a bigger picture recap of this to address the no dead end streets waiver. And I know that a lot of people on the board, me included, were hoping for some kind of development that might help ease some of our housing crises issues. And I understand the difficulty of the site, the difficulty of connecting this to St. Augustine Court, and also the difficulties of building more than 3 properties on here. So I am I come to sort of accept that we are dealing in this zoning area that is 20,000 square feet, and dealing with surrounding houses that are 5,000 to 7,000 square feet, and by right that's there. So in talking about the waiver for the no dead end streets, I think that my understanding is that the rule to not have that is because we want to connect the new developments to the community. And with this this cul-de-sac of 3, I would agree with both Brian's, Sekeli and Manter, and the suggestion of an HOA to take care of the stormwaters, to take care of the maintenance of the road, the plowing, and to be responsible for those things, as it is sort of an outlier, right? These cul-de-sacs are sort of tough to get to. So that's my thought on the regulation for the waiver for the dead end street. And the others, I agree with the other Brian's that these things are would need the expertise of some of the other folks in town. So just a small thing that I wanted to address about the application, which is a small thing, but in the comments about public services and schools, it says that there would be negligible or there would be very little impact, if any. And I just want to, acknowledge the surrounding houses, and I'm hearing that these houses will be like the surrounding houses that are 5,000 to 7,000 square feet with 5 to 6 bedrooms, and so that there would be possibly a lot of people enrolled in schools here, or 3 per 2 to 4 per site, and with the addition of 9 kids, which is half a classroom. So I just wanted to just note that, because we do ask that and we do question that a lot for the multifamily developments. And I just want to acknowledge that these things also add to the impact of single family houses do add.
Okay.
Sorry, I just want to make one quick clarification that in roads like this, even though they are a private road and the HOA is managing the drainage of the road, the plowing actually would be done by DPW for the same reason that Wagon Wheel and St. Augustine and all those are done by Winchester DPW. So I would not expect that this would be done by private, specifically plowing.
Okay. Sally, please go ahead.
So as I looked through this package, it seemed to me that this was a great opportunity to balance some things that are really important to Winchester. And I Ching hit on one of them, which is how one would describe our housing needs in this community. And as far as I can tell, the housing needs focus on providing opportunities for people to live in this town as relatively middle income families, not people who can buy a 7,000 square foot house. And so when I looked at the land and wanting to be very sensitive to the quality of the neighborhood, both at the top of the hill and at the bottom of the hill on St. Augustine and Socrates, I still think it's possible to create 3 structures that make a total of 6 two-family houses. And it would be largely the same impact on the land and on the services of the town and on the utilities coming into and out of the site. But it would create on this really beautiful and important piece of land in our town, an opportunity to solve some really missing or to provide some really important missing housing. And I remember, Ricky, that you said at one time that you were really excited to have come to Winchester and that you really hoped that over the years that your company could be part of really helping Winchester solve its housing needs and address them in a really high quality way. And it seems to me that with all of the quality that you could put into 3 homes, single family homes, you could equally put that quality into 6 condo townhomes. And it would have nominal impact on the neighborhood, but it would be a benefit to the community. And all of that in the context of providing a waiver for the cul-de-sac, and there, with also the idea that there's an opportunity, because this is such beautiful land, for a small part of it to be set aside for open space, even if it's just overlooks on the edges of the sidewalk of the cul-de-sac. And maybe, you need a place to park 2 cars, whatever it is, but that some public benefit that has to do with the views from that site, I think would be great. I think a lot of people don't realize how beautiful it is up there. And all of that within the context of balancing the investment return, 6 really beautiful condo townhouses versus 3 really huge single family homes. And also, so that investment return and also the benefit to the Mahoney's family, because I know that part of their motivation here is to free up some of the value in their land so that they can invest it in their town business. And personally, I think Mahoney's is an incredibly important commercial partner to our town, and that's one more factor to balance in this entire equation.
Sally, can just
Period.
Very quick. Period. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
There is a question of zoning on this land in terms of whether, and it's not zoned as multifamily. So if we wanted to do more, then this is one of the discussions we had was we couldn't apply the ARCDOT because it's too small. This would have to go through a change in zoning in order to accommodate more units. And so I understand where you're coming from, and I wish, but I think the board has to, I don't know that we can do that for this project. So, yeah.
Right, so I wanted to put it on the table, knowing full well that it had come forward before, and that what Ricky and his team have come back with is fewer number of houses from 6 to 3, which I totally agree with the rationale for that. It minimizes the impact of blasting and doing the road down the side and the whole size of the site that needs to be disturbed. And I thought that for basically the same investment and basically the same minimalizing of disturbance of the natural environment, we might be able to achieve something closer to a more diverse housing solution on that site. And that's why I brought it up.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. We have Kurt and Nick. So either of you wish to go first? Kurt, you've unmuted yourself, so please go ahead.
Sure. I can be pretty quick. I mean, I think that my fellow board members have made a lot of really important points, and I don't want to, in the interest of time, be repetitive. I think that on the cul-de-sac issue, I actually think it actually strikes me that we're going from a dead end to a cul-de-sac, which actually strikes me as somewhat of an improvement given Rocky Ledge. I think it's currently a dead end with one home having access on that street. So the cul-de-sac piece, subject to all the various comments from engineering and planning, fire department sign off and whatnot, strikes me as an improvement, and I'm comfortable with that solution here for this site. And I think the other thing that just strikes me as critically important are the recommendations from engineering and planning on getting a peer review on the stormwater runoff. That to me strikes me as maybe the most potentially challenging piece of this whole project, is just ensuring that neighboring properties, neighboring sites are not impacted by what happens here. Because I do think, just given the topo here, if I were a neighbor, I would be quite concerned and want to be 100% certain that I'm not going to be impacted. So I think the peer review recommendation is critical here. And I think that's it. I did want to say, I Ching, I think, made a really good point on the schools, which I think I sort of missed when I went through the application, where I think it made a comment that it was like a negligible impact. And I do think she's spot on to say that the addition of potentially, and I like your math, I Ching, I mean, like 9 students potentially to the schools is negligible. I don't think is accurate. I think that's actually impactful. I mean, my kids are in the elementary schools. I know the size of the classrooms. Our schools are full. So I do think it's maybe a little flippant to say that the schools are not impacted. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Nick.
I would like to echo the sentiments of I Ching and Sally regarding the uniqueness of the opportunity to make a difference in the town, and not to forget the missing middle, as it were. I guess going into this, I was informed that it was pretty much a done deal, and not sure whether I would need to share other opinions, to the extent that they matter at this point. But I would like to just reiterate the thoughts of Sally. I thought that was very well put, and the sentiments that I Ching put forth regarding, serving the middle of the buyer pool. And I guess that's it for me. I'm not an engineer, nor am I an architect, so I will be relying on those areas of expertise for what appears to me is 80% of this discussion today.
Okay, thank you, Nick. So in the time we have remaining, which is about 20 minutes or 15 minutes actually, So I think that if we were to go through the waivers, and why doesn't the board, Brian, what's the best way to do this? Should we just simply vote on accepting the waiver or adding a waiver, add conditions?
So yeah, I'm just trying to process, all the the different comments, and there were several questions in there, some for more information, but others I feel like I need to I guess say how it would be done, meaning to potentially make duplexes in this area rather than just rezoning this site, which would probably not be advisable. What some members are talking about is essentially making duplexes allowed everywhere in the RDA 20, meaning that that's how I see that conversation, which isn't necessarily here, meaning as part of this subdivision application, but just in general if the board, this is a policy decision, if it is what you're talking about is potentially trying to hit the missing middle more, meaning essentially that a $1 million home is better than a $2 million home, and simply because we have so many at the $2 million range and not at the one or whatever. I'm just using round numbers for sake of ease here. How that would manifest itself would be a rezoning of allowing duplexes in all of the RDA 20. I believe that's what you're talking about. So just as a reality check of how that works, that's I think how that would work. So I don't know what else to say on that, but in terms of the waivers, I think conceptually, because the applicant has come before the board, a different board, not the exact same board that they're seeing today, where a zoning change was contemplated, and then the board basically said that that's where we got to. The idea is that we would essentially have to allow duplexes in more places, or that type of conversation. But at the same time, we knew we had a subdivision application. So this is the zoning that's on the books. So just and in terms of the waivers, I think yes, I think conceptually, the board should vote on whether or not they would consider a dead-end street, and it could be couched with, needing obviously more information. It's not like if this is this is approved. The idea is that there is a definitive stage. But I think it's extremely important at this preliminary stage to decide the larger waiver of conceptually is a three-house subdivision, with a dead-end street. Is that something the board is willing to contemplate? What is the vote? I think that's important, because they can't, it's not really fair to make an applicant then go to a definitive stage if it's unknown, if the concept is not even going to work. So conceptually, we have to give real feedback to the applicant.
Okay, and then there's another step, which is so I think that's to do that. I think the board does have to take a vote on whether or not the three-house subdivision with the cul-de-sac is acceptable. And then I think, so I'm a little, seeing as it's the first time I've gone through this preliminary subdivision thing. We're going to draw up a document, Brian, is that we're going to have a document which goes through legal, and we will.
A decision, correct.
A decision. So what I would like to see before I would like to finalize that decision is to get some of the questions that Brian has posed answered on his memo. Are there any other, before, okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we just take a vote on the concept of a three.
Dia,
yes.
I have a question. So we're going into a vote. I kind of would like to get a sense if there's a consensus among the board members going into this, as to what direction people seem to be leaning.
would the vote not do that? I guess I mean, we
Okay.
have before us a plan.
I mean, I'm feeling, at a loss to, as I mentioned, I'm neither an engineer nor an architect. And I mean, those are the primary issues. I guess I guess I was sort of informed going into the meeting that it was kind of a done deal. So I'm just trying to get a sense as, is that what we're doing here? Are we being asked to give our opinion?
Well, we
you know, as if it mattered. I mean, I'm just not, it just seems like this is a rubber stamp of something that's been done.
Nick, just curious, who's been telling you this is a done deal? I'm just curious.
Who's asking? Oh,
That's Kurt.
No, I'm not going to go there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Just
well, I mean, we've had several discussions with the proponents over the last year. We had one of the Mahonies, I forget which Mahoney, apologized, come before us and describe the impact on their business. At that point, that board came to a conclusion that we would consider a cul-de-sac. Based on that, I mean, nothing is a done deal until we vote for it. So,
I mean, I don't have any reason not to vote for it, but
Sally,
I feel like it's been done.
That's why I have my hand raised. Nick, I don't want to cut you off, but I have.
Sally, go ahead.
So I have perhaps thrown a wrench into the conversation by going back to something that we discussed in the previous board, this question of having it be more than, at the time, it was going to be 6 single-family homes. And yes, the discussion was to reduce the impact on the land. And so the decision to do that, to bring it to 3 single-family homes, I am totally in favor of, with lots of caveats, like tree preservation is a really big part of it, and really sensitive grading of the site, and really strong attention both at the road development stage and subsequently at the development of every one of those lots, regardless of whether the size of the house triggers site plan review. That the drainage of every one of those lots would be thoroughly scrutinized, even as with outside review as needed. So in my mind, I'm resolved, as I think I Ching said, to the question of it being 3 single-family homes. But the things that are really important to me is that the environmental impact, the runoff, all of that, the buffering with the neighbors, the minimization of impact to the site, the minimization of blasting, the minimization of tree removal, really seriously minimization of tree removal, because some of the trees up there are magnificent. They've been there a long time, and they are a major community asset. And I'm sure that the Mahoney family would understand the value of trees. I still think it would be great to have an opportunity for visitors to the community, or even hikers in the community, to walk out to the corner of the cul-de-sac and look out over the view, which means that the cul-de-sac would not be entirely circled by land that is held by those 3 lots. There might be a small view shed that people could walk to. You're not standing on someone else's land, and maybe there's a place where they can pull over for a car, but it's a beautiful asset to the community, those trees that are up there and the view that's up there. And I think those are the things that are really important to me.
No, that's extremely helpful, Sally. I have no further questions.
Okay. In that case, why don't we take a vote on acceptance of, I'm going to read what Brian has written here. This is the no dead end streets, section 7.6.5 regulation waiver, which is a 3-house lot subdivision with a cul-de-sac. And so if someone would make the motion, because I supposedly cannot, to move that the board endorse that concept.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
So we'll do a roll call vote. Well, is there any discussion? Oh, okay. Kurt?
Aye.
Sally?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
I Ching?
Aye.
And Dibbs says aye as well. Okay, so I think that was the most important waiver that we were going to discuss, and I think gives some assurances to the developers as to where the board is going to go. What I would suggest is that we have to do two things. One is we need to ask of the developers a continuance because we are very close to the end of the 45 days or whatever the magic number is. I always get that wrong. So we'd like to ask for a continuance. Is that the right term?
Yes, to September 6th.
To September 6th. And
Clarification regarding 45 days?
It is 45. We're at like 42 right now.
What was the initial trigger?
it was submitted.
Date of application.
The date of application. And as was explained to me, typically engineering needs several weeks to go through this. And so the reason we're seeing this now rather than earlier was to give engineering enough time to examine the plans and come up with their recommendations. So if we could get someone from the development team, my Zoom is scattered, who could help us with that. Ask for continuance until what was the date, Brian?
I think that we're going to do right at the beginning, 7 p.m. on September 6th.
Okay.
If I could just, good evening, Mr. Chairman, Attorney Mark, representing the applicant. I apologize for being late to the party earlier, but I've been listening to most. But my colleague, Bill Proya, of course, has been here for the duration. But just a point of clarification is I don't think we're not adverse to a continuation and a waiver of the statutory timeframe for the board to act. But so is the concept that it would be continued to September 6th, at which time the board would have a written decision just documenting the discussion tonight, or what's happening between now and the 6th, just so I'm clear?
That's a good question.
So I was thinking it was going to be response letters to the engineering and planning questions, and then those responses would probably be incorporated into some type of a decision, regardless of what that decision is. But I would imagine there would be that between now and September 6th, the hope is that either all or most of those questions will either be answered, or concerns will be addressed, or agreements will, peer review, or, that type of thing between the next 3 weeks.
I think our hope is that a final decision will be made on the 6th, and that the next 3 weeks are just getting all the questions answered. So for instance, I would personally recommend that the waivers that were requested by engineering and the planner be added. And I don't know if there were anything else that the other board members want in addition to those questions. Mr. Vaughn, did that answer your question? I apologize.
Yeah, no, I believe it did. Brian, Tim, and you feel comfortable that, between that period of time, we'd be able to respond and address the comments, right?
Yes, I do believe that we'd be able to respond to the comments. As Mr. Zalecki mentioned, we probably won't have answers to all the questions and comments, but we will have forms of agreements or path of being able to address the concerns, for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, the way I would see ultimately, and I think it's been pointed out tonight, the preliminary subdivision process isn't an approval. I mean, we would need to go through the definitive step next. So this is really trying to just guide us to what the larger points. I mean, there's not going to be a peer review, for example, done between now and the 6th, right? But
Of course, it's setting that up. Yep.
Yeah. It would just be, we would finalize on which consultants we would like. So. Okay, if you've given us the go ahead, so we will we will continue this until, I'm going to get it wrong again, September the 6th. And why don't we do that at 7:15 p.m. And are there any other things that the board would like, any other questions the board has they would like to have answered by that time? I think I personally am the only thing I would add would be to understand how to minimize the cul-de-sac as much as possible, of course, within the constraints of what the fire department wants. Sally, please. You are muted, Sally.
Muted.
You are muted.
Sorry. So the questions that I had, as I went through the project, in addition to assurances about a very comprehensive tree protection process, had to do with capacity. And I'm assuming that this is public utility capacity, and I'm assuming that's entirely within the scope of the engineering department, but they are questions that occurred to me. And then I also would like to know the dimension of the landscaped island, and encourage that to be incorporated into the plans. And then, so tree protection, sewer capacity, landscaped island. And then I would just say everything that Brian and Diab have said about that all of the runoff for all of the housing sites would be managed in the process of developing those sites, and that the stormwater management system that is being put in place at this phase is to capture all the stormwater off the center island and the cul-de-sac and the street and sidewalks. If I'm not mistaken, is that correct?
Yes, but there are no sidewalks.
Right, exactly. No sidewalks, sorry. So yeah, those are my concerns, and I think they have been raised and are intended to be addressed.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Then I guess we are good to go. Thank you all very much. We will pause the hearing. What's the correct word?
No, it's been continued already to.
Yes, it's been
yeah.
continued. So, but we will end the hearing for today, is what I'm trying to say. We will adjourn from the hearing. We will move on to other business. So thank you very much to the applicant and your whole team. Appreciate you coming by, and we will see you soon. Thank you very much to all of the neighbors who have come out this evening. We really appreciate your input and your insights. We hope to see you again in the 6th. And again, we will be having more conversations when the definitive subdivision application is made in the future. So please, we will let you know when that happens, and I hope to see you then as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for your time and thoughtful comments. Really appreciate it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next agenda item. So we have A&R. Are we actually headed? No, we're actually 5 minutes. We have updates, supposedly. Why don't we jump in to updates? We kind of have them a little later than usual. Brian, you want to give us some updates?
Yeah, I can. One thing, I guess this was in my weekly updates for a little bit, but not at our last meeting. But the final guidelines for Section 3A in the Zoning Act, known as the MBTA zoning. The final guidelines for that came out from the Department of Housing and Community Development. on Friday. This was big news because we thought that it was not going to come out until Thanksgiving or later. They've made some changes, some significant, some minor, since the draft guidelines. They took a lot of people's comments into consideration, and there's some new math that I'm going to be developing a memo kind of explaining the changes from the final guidelines from the draft guidelines. There's also been a number of groups that have been very quickly trying to get this information out. There is some technical assistance through DHCD and the Department of Housing and Community Development, as well as I think MAPC, in order to really kind of jumpstart the action plan. Our community would need to stay compliant with the law and apply for different types of grant funding. We would need to have a action plan written and approved in January of January of 23. So about 5 months away. So you can get technical assistance to help with that action plan to see. I think just as in the draft guidelines, I think Winchester is actually in a pretty good position when compared to other communities because of the proximity of the GBD 2 and 3 to the center business district. And I think we might actually be able to use the GBD 2 and 3 as part of the MBTA station area, which is a defined term. It typically had to be within a half a mile. However, based upon some metrics that DHCD did in the final guidelines, only about 50% of our area has to be within the station area, which means I think we actually might be, like I said, I think we might be able to add the GBD 2 and 3 and have it not really be a very huge lift for us. Some communities do not even have, 100 developable acres within their train station. We have in the 400 to 500 acre area. 400 to 500 developable acres within a half a mile of the train station. So again, they've come out with a whole bunch of new math and new maps as well to kind of explain and make this law very transparent in terms of why certain communities would be required to do certain things and why not. It's making it all based upon, numbers and GIS. So I'll stop there with that one large update, but that is an actual very big one that's going to potentially change a lot of the housing landscape near all the train stations in Massachusetts. It's actually it is a big deal. So back to you, DM.
Yeah, and I think we will be discussing that. Probably we'll set aside a big chunk of time to discuss that at our next. We'll see what our agenda looks like, but as soon as possible, so that we can dive into this, because 5 months is not a long amount of time, as everyone on this board I'm sure realizes by now. And we do have a lot of questions. Well, I have a lot of questions. The only other update that I have is the tree working group made a presentation to the select board yesterday, a very short presentation. And that's about all I'll say about that. It was mostly a, hey, we exist, here are our goals and visions. And we let them know that if we do anything with a tree ordinance, it would be probably most probably this coming spring. It'll be at the earliest. So why don't we move on to unless, I'm sorry, are there any other updates? Nick, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm wondering, has the working group with historical about getting information out to, coming up with something to put in the building department, has that met yet? Do you know anything?
No, that hasn't. I have on my agenda to put together the beginnings of a brochure, but I'll be meeting with and requiring the inputs of mostly legal to come up with the draft content. So that's where that stands.
Okay. But I know that we should probably reach out to historical and make sure they remember that we were doing this. I think it was kind of an impromptu thing, so.
So what are you looking specifically from historical, I guess?
Well,
just so that I can.
at our joint meeting with historical, we discussed education in terms of things for developers and homeowners. And there was a working group that was set up, which included a couple of people from historical, and I think you and Kurt. Did I get that right, Kurt, or did I sign you up or something?
No, I think
Yeah,
you signed me up, but then I subsequently volunteered. So I think it all.
So I think so. There is a I guess official, and I'll put it in scare quotes, group to be working on that. And I was just wondering if any sort of coordination had happened yet.
No, we haven't coordinated. I've actually been attending the meetings of the Historical Commission, but I do appreciate the reminder to bring this to the fore the next time that happens, if not before.
Yeah, just things seem to take. Everything takes longer than we think it should. That's all I would.
And if I understand correctly, the deliverable is a brochure.
I think that's up to you, that committee, to define what it is that, I know we talked about, brochures at the building department, and I know there was a discussion about things for realtors, and I Ching gave us some, I think, rather pragmatic lessons about what's possible. So maybe we should, so I think that's up to you folks on that working group to come up with the best, the venue and the content. So
okay.
So Dia, just so I'm clear, it's like, should Nick and I be taking the lead on trying to rally the troops at the historic to try and set something up?
If they haven't reached out to you, then I would suggest you reach out to them just to get it. And unfortunately, I can't remember who was on that working group. I know there were. So I think it's in the minutes, definitely in the minutes.
It's in the minutes. Yeah.
I can reach out to the chair, and I can put everybody in touch.
That'd be helpful, Brian, actually.
Coordinate that.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Okay, so let us, we're a little late on our starting. So our next item on our agenda is an A&R for 21 Dartmouth Street, which confusingly is also labeled 53 Wildwood.
53 Wildwood is also on the A&R list.
It's the same.
It's a separate property.
Yeah, but it affects both properties. It's 21 Dartmouth and 53 Wildwood. So it's one application, two properties.
Right. So
I can go through my memo as usual.
Yep, please do.
So this is for an A&R to move an existing lot line. So no new lots are being created here. This is the existing lot line and is going to be moved about 70 feet in order. And this, as part of that, you can see here, existing dwelling to be raised, built in 1892. This is a historic resource that went through the Historical Commission for demo delay. The Historical Commission put the demo delay on this at September 13th of last year. That will be up again, September 13th of this year. But this process is simply asking the board, does it have all the submission requirements for an A&R, and is the access over the frontage, and is there enough frontage and square footage? So my analysis, as well, I'd also talked with this senior engineer Sean Broderick in the engineering department, and we both agreed that all of the necessary submission requirements have been met, and the threshold for allowing this A&R to proceed has also been met, because there is enough square footage, there's enough frontage, and the access to the house is over that frontage. So those are the three questions that need to be answered, and both the engineering department and I agree that they are positive. So I recommended endorsing this A&R based upon the answer to those three questions.
Thank you.
I,
So let me give a little bit of introduction to what we're doing here. So as Brian pointed out, the A&R is technically complete. And so the board can, if the board votes to endorse it, it will go ahead and we sign it. If the board chooses not to endorse it, it will still go ahead because it is technically the division of the moving of the lot line and everything results into completely buildable lots. So we can comment upon whether we like this or not, but we will not be able to change the outcome this evening.
I just
So-
had some prepared comments I wanted to share.
So please, go ahead.
So I guess with 21 Dartmouth, I have no comments. And with 53 Wildwood, I'm at a loss for words. And I'd like to preface my comments with the appropriate respect to Mr. Murray, who's the messenger in this regard. The house I'd like to know, built in 1892, has, just to name a few of the attributes, contains 3 working fireplaces, including with original surrounds and including original ceramic tiling. Unusual leaded glass details in the entryway, remarkable and unusual granite stonework in both front and rear entrances, all components leading to a striking whole. The demolition, in the opinion of this board member, represents an egregious and consequential loophole in the protections currently in place. And I'd like to see exploration of options to prevent this from happening in the future. The property has been a landmark, a remarkable and unusual building in my consciousness personally for the past 50 years. I think the 2 adjectives I'd give to this are thoughtless and obtuse, and I cannot in good conscience and will not cast my vote in support of this particular motion.
Thank you. Brian, could you key up that website I sent you if you can?
Sure.
So there is a slideshow if you click on that. So this house was up for sale and sold last year. And one of the benefits of it being on Zillow is.
Whoa, don't know what happened here.
No, we're not going to watch that. Sorry.
Sorry. Give me a second.
Yep. Okay, so one of the benefits of Zillow and it being on the market is we actually get to see the property. And Nick, I was truly shocked having driven by the property, but also being able to see what we will lose when this is demolished. And so just very quickly, let's see if we can get through it. This is the front of that. Brian, you can just page through this. It's just a remarkable building. You can see some of the fireplaces. The space is amazing. The details are remarkable. It's just got an amazing porch out front. I mean, this is a tremendous and profound loss. And I share, and remarkably, this is actually a better picture than that was that you got from Macros, because it actually shows the original building with the roof.
Yeah.
It was removed in 1940s or 50s or whenever.
Initially, I wasn't sure whether the demolition was, quote,
There was a fire.
entire demolition or whether they were going to keep the certain parts of it, but it looks like it's entirely going to go.
Yeah. So anyway, I could not put into words. I think you put it in well, Nick. I just thought I'd let the images speak for themselves. Sally?
So I just am completely in agreement with everything that Nick said about the tragedy of this particular house being torn down. And I understand that there aren't ways in our town with our laws to prevent this. And I find that to be just very difficult to understand. And I just want to make sure that that's really right. Is that true?
We have a 1-year demo delay for all
So,
homes built before, I think, 1945. We don't even have a rolling date. Many towns say if the home is older than this many years. In Winchester, it's set at a particular date. So,
well, all I can say is that the work that Nick and Kurt are doing to prepare a document, a brochure that would explain through our real estate community to our prospective buyers of historic homes, that when they buy a historic home in our town, that our wish as a planning board, and I would think that would be the wish of the historical commission too, would be that they not buy it with the intention of destroying it, just because it's a historic asset and everything in my marrow tells me to protect historic assets. So the whole thing leaves me speechless. And what I have a hard time, this is a separate topic, but on this plan, I'm having a really hard time identifying what the changed property line is being proposed for. But that's almost moot. Well, no, it's actually central to the question, because the question of demolition appears to be moot.
So this is the existing lot line here, and it's moving to here. So it's
moving to where it says N722430E 1113.
Yes, that's the new lot. That's the new lot line.
Okay,
So then it goes right through the building. It actually was a little confusing compared to some others, but everything is certainly there. They're not hiding anything. Or
No,
there's no funny.
Are there two owners? Is one owner purchasing land from the other to build?
This owner bought this lot and is creating a larger backyard. And
it came before us a year ago.
Came before the historical commission, and then the historical commission tried to get them to save the house, move the house, all the different options that they could, but the applicant didn't want to do that and just said that they were going to wait. Here they are again. This is they're moving this lot line in order to have a larger backyard. This house will be raised so that, and then they're trying to, as you can see here, would be the area. This dotted line here would be the area that they would be able to develop based upon the setbacks and the lot coverage.
And they're taking this down so they can have a larger backyard.
Correct.
Is it a developer or is it a people that want a larger backyard?
Homeowner. It's a homeowner right here.
Bought both houses.
Once, this came on the market. He bought it in order to
tear it down.
make it.
He bought both, or just the homeowner?
No, he lived in Dartmouth, and he bought the one on Wildwood so that he could have a bigger backyard with the intention of tearing it down a year ago, and the historical commission put it on a 1-year delay.
So again, just to be very clear, that Diab said that the essentially for taking a stand and not sign and not, you don't have to vote for it, obviously, but it essentially just makes it so the clerk has to sign it instead of the planning board members. So just so we know clearly about what is the decision is.
Well, how hard is it for the clerk to sign it? I mean, it's sort of
it's not hard at all for her to sign. I'm just saying what happens when people vote. That's all.
So this board in previous incarnations has decided not to endorse the A&R. So what I'm going to do to move this along is ask if there is a motion to approve this A&R.
And I just, can we have a little bit more discussion?
Thank you.
Sure. We were running.
It seems like it just came from one side, and I just wanted to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Yeah, the demolition delay to me, my understanding of that was to do to give a little bit more pause and thought to houses that have a better quality. And I would agree that 1949 is a good date, or wherever it was, a pre-war, better quality, kind of a different architecture. And from what I saw from the packet, it did say that this, the historical portion of it is that it had changed over the years to be kind of unrecognizable in its style, I guess, right? Where the upper stories were removed. And the applicant did everything that the town had asked for. And I wonder if, I mean, it just seems like it is a sad thing. And, other towns or other cities, especially like places like Detroit, have sort of offered the world, and whoever wants to move that house and preserve it can, if they just have to pay for the moving fees. But I mean, it's a property rights issue, and they follow the law. I'm having a hard time seeing that they wouldn't be able to do it.
That they wouldn't be able to do what? I'm sorry, move it?
Do what they're doing, yeah. Well, move the lot line. They can move the lot line if that's the request. Yeah, absolutely. They can move the lot line, right? But I think we're adding on to the fact that they're raising the house, but that wasn't the request for this A&R.
Right, that's true.
That is correct.
That's very correct.
So I don't think that we can add that issue on, tag it on. Whereas the A&R in itself should be approved, because this is sort of what the law has said that people can do.
Alternatively, Diab, you just mentioned that there's plenty of precedent for the planning board to simply not take a vote.
Yeah, I don't know if there's plenty. There is certainly precedent. It has happened. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. I mean, what they're doing is perfectly legal. I agree, Ching. If this board had I don't think this board has the authority, and it doesn't, to prevent them from doing what they're doing. I would say that the loss of this, I understand what you're saying, and I think I've said my piece, so I won't waste any more space. At this point, I would like to ask if there is a motion to endorse,
that's correct.
To endorse
the A&R or not endorse the A&R. Yeah.
Well, let me first ask, is there a motion to endorse the A&R?
I think I would make that motion. I feel like they have, I don't know if I need to discuss it anymore, but they've sort of worked within the law and this request to move the lot line should be legal according to the reading of the law, and they're reading the law in the way that the law has been written. So right. I would endorse it.
Okay, is there a second?
I would second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Technically, we're supposed to ask for discussion.
Can I ask a discussion question?
Sure.
So the choice to those of us who are sad about the house being torn down is whether or not we agree that all the conditions of requesting an A&R and qualifying for an A&R have been met. And I Ching's point is well taken, that it is not before us to object to that A&R on the basis of a historic house that has gone through all has complied with all of the timelines with regards to demolition delay, and that therefore my only choices would be to abstain. Well, I would abstain, I would vote for, or I would vote against. I have no basis for voting against, and it breaks my heart to vote for. So it seems to me that I would simply abstain.
That's certainly yes, you can.
I'd like to argue that the substance of the matter is the demolition of the property. The technicality of what we're looking at is a moving of a lot line, or doing this, that, or the other thing. But the substance of what we're looking at is the demolition of the property. What are we encouraging And I don't think in good conscience I could support it.
I just want to point out, you definitely don't need to be, I agree that if you're not in good conscience, you don't need to support it. But in terms of what you actually are reviewing, we are not reviewing demolition here. And just so we're clear, and like, it might be important to members of the board and can actually influence
I think it's
her
important to
decision.
memorialize a position.
Yeah. I'm just saying, we are not reviewing that. Meaning that's not part of the review, as Yiching said, as part of the law. Yes, it can change your whether or not you want to take a stand to go against something like this. Totally within your right. I just want to make it very clear that it is not part of the review of the A&R.
Right. I get that.
Is there a different A&R that deals with the demolition of the property, or is this the A&R?
We have no purview over
There's
demolitions.
there's no purview. We don't even give comments, although it has happened on maybe 4 or 5 occasions out of the past 8 years that I've been here, where we actually gave comments to the historical commission about something.
Right.
But they've already gone through that process. I think that's the whole thing.
Right. But really, this is the closest that we get at this point. I mean, we're not going to do better.
I think that's right.
I think we have an egregious hole in our toolbox, and we're not going to do any better. And I can't support it. I just can't. I just can't.
Yeah, I would like to note that the reason I bring this up is because the loss that I feel and the fact that we do not have any extra tools to encourage development, which could have possibly, if we could have turned it into a multi-unit building, something which would have created the financial incentive to maintain that, is something we don't have. And I don't hold it against the current owner. They're doing everything that they have a right to do, and I don't have any animosity towards them for doing it. I'm just ruining the loss of this building. So I just want to point that out. We don't have the tools. I wish we did. And this can galvanize us to try to figure out some tools that would help us retain our historic structures and bring them into a use which would make them more useful to our community than as a raised lot. So we have a motion on the floor. Is there any more discussion that we're going to have on this? If not, then I will have a roll call vote. Kurt Spring?
Aye.
Sally Dale?
Abstain.
Nick Rosettos?
Nay.
Yiching Scott?
Aye.
And Diabjeri says aye as well. So we have a 3-1-1 vote. So in any case, this goes through. 3-1-1 as goes through. So thank you for that. At the moment, we are moving on to our discussion of form and place, scope, and fee. So I think we have before us the scope that form and place sent us. I think the big question that has come up is, how does all of this fit into the MBTA, whatever the name of the zoning is, multi-family zoning?
3A, just 3A. It should go into your brain. 3A.
3A. How does this fit into 3A if we can utilize GBDs 2 and 3 as part of that? That obviously might change what we're thinking about doing and might change the scope of what form and place is suggesting. So before we jump into that, are there any quick comments about the scope and process for this next part from the board?
I think it was really great and helpful even to us to see how to get from A to, Z here. And I trust that the quality that they've shown so far, their work, it seems like I trust sort of this to be met. And, to be frank, I think that they're delivering a lot for what we're paying them. So I'm really pleased to see this.
Any other comments?
I agree with what I Ching just said.
Yeah, I've been happy with them. I think we initially thought that they were enthusiastic and really wanted the work. And I think they are enthusiastic and they do really want the work, and they seem to be passionate about what they're doing with us.
Kurt?
Agreed.
Okay.
Won't be repetitive. Yeah.
Oh, I saw you unmuted. That's my signal.
No, that's it.
So I can't but agree. I do admit that I am concerned about how much is getting done in the next 4 months, but that's just the nature of the beast. And I think that we are going to have to, every one of us will have to take a look at the 3A regs and really try to understand and work with form in place. And I guess, Brian, you will be spending some time discussing that with them. I'm sure.
Yes, and just as a looking into the future, this is something that we would want to talk with other boards and committees about as we kind of meld this rezoning of the GBD 2 and 3 with this potential adherence to 3A, which is not something that is, necessarily that we know widely that the town wants to pursue. We want to pursue it. I believe the select board wants to pursue it. However, it's unclear if the town as a whole is ready to do this action plan to try to pursue this adherence to this. So there is going to be a process, and I don't know what that process is. It's certainly going to be more than just the select board or talking to them about progress related to 3A, but it's we're obviously not doing this towards fall, but it's just going to need a larger conversation outside of the rezoning of GBD 2 and 3.
Go ahead, Sally.
The question for Brian, it sounded like from what you were just saying that you were saying that towns can choose to not pay attention, that MBTA towns can choose to not pay attention
That is
to
correct.
regulations coming out of this 3A.
Correct. And what that would do is preclude us from applying for a large buckets of money through the One Stop for Growth, which is it's like 9 different grant programs.
And those buckets of money are potentially really useful to our executing our complete streets vision for North Main Street. So I guess I don't understand why we wouldn't make sure that our work with all of the process described in this proposal wouldn't incorporate the 3A compliance into it. I just don't understand that.
Like I said, I think that's something that we like to talk about it because this is stuff that we're interested in. Meaning that if you're going to put density anywhere, put it either near transit or along some type of a transit route. But not necessary. That's it. It's just it's unclear if the town as a whole wants to basically require a higher level of density along the GBD 2 and 3.
In exchange for which we get access to hundreds of millions of dollars of support over the years.
You're speaking extremely rationally, Sally. And you're yeah. I mean, again, though, I'm 100, like literally in 100% agreement of your mentality here.
Where in the process do you anticipate this particular issue becoming a problem in terms of town opinion?
Or it would be zoning.
It would be, yeah, I mean,
At town meeting?
it's a zoning change, that many, I mean, I think it's more of just, I don't know. It's certainly in a higher level of density along a corridor that we clearly want regardless of 3A, right? I mean, the whole point was to make GBD in 2 and 3 a lively place that people want to safely bike and walk.
And does 3A preclude that?
No, it doesn't. But I'm saying that we were trying to kind of do that anyway. But again, it's a larger conversation with the town, I think, in order to try whether town meeting really wants to try to even comply with this. Kind of as like I said, as a separate conversation, really, from this. It's going to be hard to distinguish the two.
Well, it seems to me that it's a chicken and egg, but we should decide that the 3A conversation with town meeting could be the lead conversation, because it defines, if they don't want Winchester to comply with 3A requirements and are fully aware of the loss of funding sources for all kinds of improvements in our town, then that's a conscious decision they make. But I think a matter of education could address a lot of it.
Yeah, I think the first step is getting the select board and the planning board into a place with legal counsel to come up with this action plan that's due in January.
Okay.
I think that's kind of like that's where we need to start with, the planning board's job is clearly with the growth and development of town. But complying with this law can't just be a planning board exercise.
Right. And so how does that, if the action plan needs to be done by January, is that what you were saying about the pace of this work, September through December, in their proposal?
Yeah, I mean, this is just, we're honestly, like I said, like last week, I totally got hit in the face because I was like, oh, well, we're not going to hear about 3A probably till the end of the year. And then, so I was wrong, like 100% wrong there. So that did change the timeline for me and the board a little bit, because now we have these guidelines and we can start trying to show compliance or show a plan for compliance.
So it seems to me that maybe the North Main Street Corridor Revitalization Project and the action plan to address the terms of the MBTA communities can.
That is it. That is the action. So yeah, surprise, surprise. That is the action plan, by the way. It is what I think that we have devised.
The North Main Street Revitalization is our master plan, is our action plan.
Yeah, I think that is our best bet. I've been saying this for a bit. But yes, that would be and an action plan would come up with the timing of a campaign to change the zoning. That's what the action plan would be. It's the action plan to change the zoning.
So I just want to say that one of the things we need to figure out is how easy it is to get GBDs 2 and 3 accepted as part of the 3A zoning. If they are accepted, what sort of densities are required? So, I mean, there are some unknowns. This may be a very simple.
Those are knowns now, meaning the final guidelines. It did explain.
Yes, but they are known to those few who have read them. But for those of us who have not yet read them, they are a mystery. So I haven't read them yet. But if we are able to if we can make very modest changes to density, or no changes whatsoever, or whatever, then, but those are unknowns that we have to figure out. I should point out that many years ago, when the town meeting had the opportunity to increase the zoning, the density in parts of North Main Street, in particular, I think when they were looking at the development at the Cross Street and Main Street development, there was it was voted down. I don't recall what the results were, but it was not accepted to increase the density. In particular, people were worried about parking, which is something which a lot of people worry about. So this is not the same town meeting. it has been, I don't know, 1,000 years since then.
I was thinking times changed and.
Times have changed, so, but we need to, I sort of echo what Brian is saying, is that, and what you're saying, Sally, is we need to educate, but I think before we can educate, we have to figure out ourselves what it is that we need to do. So, I know
Nice
Brian.
and uncomplicated.
Yeah, and so I know Brian, John Serbier, and I think that's the correct English, we'll be meeting this week to start taking, to just sort of deconstruct. Thank you, or decompose this thing and try to understand it, and then we will have a much bigger discussion our next time, where we can see where it goes. So
And so does that mean that we don't approve this proposal because the timeline might not work?
No, I don't. So they have planned 3 virtual meetings over the fall. And I agree with I Ching that we're getting, I think, a lot of value here with this proposal. So that's what we wanted to do, regardless of the timing exactly of how that fits with 3A and zoning. There's no doubt that we could use those three public meetings that they're planning on to get information leading up to all this. So it's not, the timing certainly works out for having meetings in the fall. So I do want to move forward with that. So I think this scope is great. If I didn't say that, I've been very impressed with everything that they've produced, and
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, I think we just have to, I think if there's nothing, just to say what we would do to bring this discussion to completion, I think we would vote to accept this phase 2.
Yeah, you would vote to accept the scope and fee proposed.
Right, and then I think that goes along with, I think I get to, do you sign this, Brian, or do I sign this? I don't know who signs this.
So eventually this will be part of a contract.
Right.
So this scope gets put into the contract, which will be signed by, you and
I'm just, does part of the vote have to give me the authority to sign it, or is that just?
No, not at all.
Okay, so then we don't have to do that.
No.
So is there any further discussion on the content of this document? If not, then I would highly welcome. Yes, Sally.
You would warmly welcome a
I would
motion.
warmly welcome. I'll do that too.
I would move that the planning board accept the July 27th, 2022 proposal from Form and Place regarding phase 2 planning consulting services for North Main Street corridor.
Seconded.
Excellent. Roll call vote, please. Kurt Spring.
Aye.
Nick Rosettos.
Aye.
Sally Dale.
Aye.
I Ching Scott.
Aye.
And Dieb says aye as well.
Great.
Okay, so we are done with that. Excellent. Brian, if you would pull the levers and push the buttons to move this forward, that would be appreciated.
Sure, I will do that. Now I'm able to finalize the contract, so that's what I needed to move forward with that. We have a little bit of.
Did you know that's a quote from the libretto from the movie Toys?
Pulling levers and pushing
Push
buttons.
the buttons.
Oh, well, that's interesting, because I have a faint memory of knowing about that prior to Toys, but Toys is the one with Robin Williams, right?
I think
I don't remember.
it's a crazy surreal movie. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry for this.
So going back to reality, I guess. Accessory dwelling unit bylaw is on our agenda. And I'm not sure there's a lot to talk about right now. So the ADU working group, we filled you in a couple of weeks ago about the plans, which were the ADU working group was going to bring a bylaw forward in the spring of 23. Subsequent to that discussion or presentation to this board, the select board member, Michael Betancourt, is planning to bring a bylaw forward this fall. He's part of the ADU working group now, and so there was some discussion of that bylaw with the ADU working group last Friday, which follows on to a discussion we had a few weeks ago where we went through the bylaw that he proposed and commented on it and so we had further discussion on Friday. I don't know, it appears that he may be bringing this bylaw forward on his own, not as a complete select board, a wholly supported, or is not something which is proposed by the select board. So I know I can't speak for the whole working group, but I know that there was some consensus that we were worried about the timing in terms of not bringing this forward, about this being brought forward too quickly. And also in terms of some of the provisions in the bylaw that was suggested, which would maybe not provide our target populations of persons with disabilities and people over 62. So this is all kind of fluid at the moment. So I wish I could give you more certainty about what's going to happen with the fall town warrant, what the content of that bylaw would be, because I know we want to bring whatever ADU bylaw is before this board to get this board's either its comments, its support, its whatever, but I don't have anything that I can really bring you because it's still very fluid.
I'm wondering if it would be helpful, and I know it would be helpful to me to sort of hear perspectives from the board, different members, how we feel about it. I mean, consensus maybe is the wrong word, but it certainly would be helpful to hear what people think or regarding the process, positive and negative, I guess. I mean, on the face of it, it would seem that it would address a need to have more housing at a smaller units, and also make the outlays of the individuals who are putting the units in their houses more affordable. But other than that, I'm wondering, are there any unintended consequences in people's minds? You know, what do we think about the concept, I guess?
Well, Sally, Diab, and I have all attended the ADU meetings, so I think the three of us have been sort of advocating for it. But the tricky part of it is how to do it in a way that gives relief for people we're hoping to give relief to, and also to give sort of to spur the development of it by by bringing down some of the restrictions that a lot of people want to put on it. So,
what are some of the restrictions that we're thinking?
Like you can't rent out, or I can't. There was one where the property owner has to live in the main house. You can't have two doors in the front. You have to add extra parking. It has to be a certain square footage. Those kinds of things.
Ching, is it contemplated that there'll be relief provided for like lot coverage limitations and things like that?
I think from towns who have successfully done it and been able to get enough permits through, that those sorts of things really help, where the setbacks and stuff change, and things are much easier to build by right.
Yeah, I think we haven't taken a deep dive in terms of what those sort of zoning relief we would provide. I think that's a we haven't addressed that at all.
Mhm.
So that's something coming up. I mean, I,
Yeah. Typically, it's the other zoning provisions prevail, meaning that you know, if you have a lot coverage thing, you would still, if you go over a certain percentage, you would still need you would still need to apply for that. It's more of the use that is the big thing of what would be allowed. But typically you don't, there isn't relief given. There is, you know, you can apply for that relief just like anything. If you were expanding your home and you reach a certain threshold, then that's what it is.
I think
Right.
the focus of the conversation to date has been to focus the whole argument on serving the needs of two specific populations. And that's people who need to live, I guess you would call them adults needing to live in a supportive environment near a family member. And so it would be a disability. It would be benefit to a partially disabled person. And then the other is that it provides a benefit to elders in the community who might want to downsize, in that they may retain ownership of the whole property, but they could reside in the smaller unit and have other family members living in the main house, and it keeps families together and helps with aging in place. And so those two populations are specifically being presented as beneficiaries of the way that this bylaw would be written.
So my understanding is that currently a family member can obviously live in your house, but my understanding of the current rules are that you can't give them a kitchen. It's separate.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And
No,
the
it's
kitchen
really
provision is key for disability benefits. People who are living on disability benefits are only eligible to receive those benefits if they're living independently in a unit with their own kitchen.
But that's officially zoned, that's illegal. So it's illegal to have an ADU here. So you can't, if you had a voucher, say, for a disability thing, you can't use it because it's illegal in Winchester right now.
That's right. But we would change that.
And to be clear, it's not, although it is kitchen, really what constitutes a kitchen is an oven. Meaning that there's
Yes.
no gas or electric oven hookup.
Lots of people
that is
have
what-
ADUs, right?
It's
Tons of
many
people
people
have
many people have a second kitchen. They're
Really?
frankly not allowed to, you know, that's a duplex, that's like you could say that that's a duplex that's not allowed. Or
Well, I think in fact, there are many unacknowledged second kitchens in single family homes.
they're all over the place in every city and town, and they have been for many years. But you know, some allow them, some don't.
So hopefully it
yeah.
doesn't meet much opposition to simply recognize and legitimize the practice and the need to serve those two populations.
yeah, I think the one thing that would set the ADU apart is that the ADU would have a limitation on how large it can be. So, for instance, you could, if you had a large enough lot, and you went through a special permit, you could build an addition on the side of your house, which is 3 times the size of your house, and you know, and have a family member live there. As under an ADU, the size of the ADU, the size of that was much smaller. So, getting back, Kurt, to your, or I don't know whose question it was about whether we would give some relief in terms of setbacks and such. I think the size of the the size of the ADU would be small enough that on most lots it would probably not require. I mean, you would build it out to whatever you can already. There wouldn't be much of a difference. But if you needed larger, then certainly, I mean, that would be where you would come in for a special permit, just as you would right now. I think there is a concern in town about people creating, you know, sort of duplexes on the ground, as it were. And so being able to say, no, these are going to be specifically tailored for these individuals. It not only makes it, I think, more acceptable. It also reduces people's concerns about parking requirements. So for instance, you know, we, for instance, don't think that you really need to have more than a single extra space for an ADU, considering that most of the time it will be occupied by a single person, although we contemplate there being up to 2 bedrooms in order if there's a caretaker who would be staying there, so they would have a place to stay. So I think that's, I don't know, Nick,
no, it's helpful. Just having the conversation, I think, brings up some points and food for thought on this. But I'll look forward to getting more, more information.
Yeah, I think the ADU working group is working, or we'll claim we're working towards a document which really goes into some of the details as to, for instance, why you would, as I Ching pointed out, why you would want to be able to rent, because it provides financial stability both to the, the family as well as the person in the unit if they can make use, say, of Section 8 housing. And it gets very complicated when you start talking about people with disabilities and all of the different programs and all the very complicated requirements to gain access to those programs, dependent upon whether you rent or you have roommates or are you, it's a system which seems designed to prevent people from actually using it, in my mind. So, but we have a really, we have Kathy Boyle of the Winchester Housing Authority on our committee, who is amazingly knowledgeable about all of these things. So that's been a real boon. So hopefully we will figure out what's happening with the ADU bylaw that's been presented to the select board. And hopefully I'll be able to give you some more information soon. But right now it's kind of in flux. We are actually approaching pumpkin time. So any other matters? I think we have adjourn coming up. Do we have any action items? I think the only action items I've got down are, Brian, you were going to reach out to Jack Lemenage about our working group, and then you were going to start the ball rolling on Form in Place.
Form in Place, yep.
And then everyone is going to read 3A and
yeah, I'm gonna have a memo. I'll either have a memo by the end of this. I hope to have a memo by the end of this week, just talking about 3A. But I would say
for torture, all 300 pages are online, right?
Yeah, no, actually, the final guidelines are not so crazy. They're not. Yeah, I think, I mean, the changes that they made seem to be really addressing a lot of the things that we were talking about. So it's not as confusing as the draft guidelines. Also, I can say that the final guidelines are definitely less confusing than the draft.
It's a step forward. Okay, then I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. So roll call vote, please. Kurt.
Aye.
Nick.
Aye.
Sally.
Aye.
I Ching.
Aye.
And Diab says aye as well. So that concludes our meeting. Thank you very much to our recording secretary, Nancy Polcari. Hi, Nancy. Forgot to say hi before. Thanks to WinCam. Thanks to Brian Manter, assistant town engineer, for putting up with us as usual. Thank you for your comments. Thanks to Brian Zucchelli. What are you today? You're our town planner. Yay. And thanks to all of you out there in TV land. We will see you when we see you next. I'm not 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Have a great 3 weeks. And
thanks, guys.
Enjoy the rest of the summer. Bye.
Good night, everyone.